Congratulations! You found the Santu Pirls Stock Market Commentary for market week ending Friday, February 13th, 2015. Market breadth. With this past week's market advance, our bull-bear point and figure ratio rose from 1.13 to 1.32, advancing further within bullish territory. The total count of securities in bullish or bearish patterns rose 4% to 2,809. The count of bearish stocks decreased 4%, while the count of stocks in bullish patterns increased 12%. The Santu Pirls PNF Market Breadth Summary Chart shows us a market now 2 consecutive weeks in bullish territory. Paid subscribers have access to the OpenOffice Calc data from which the chart is generated. You may become a paid subscriber by visiting s2pmarketsignal.com, clicking on Membership, and clicking Sign Up. For those who are interested, a free 2-week trial subscription is available. The well-known market breadth indicator, the Nasdaq McClellan Summation Index, rose 100 points for the 7th rise in 17 weeks. At a negative 55.50 points, it continues below all 9 tops above plus 100 and above all 7 bottoms below minus 100 in the last 3 years. Market Gauge Volume Analysis. In this week's volume analysis, all indexes ended in neither accumulation nor distribution mode. In the last 2 weeks, the Nasdaq 100 Trust had 0 accumulation days and 0 distribution days. Of the other indexes, both the Diamonds Trust and the S&P 500 Deposit Receipts ended in neither accumulation nor distribution mode. Accumulation days are counted when the index closes up on higher volume than the prior market day, while distribution days occur when the index closes down on volume higher than the prior market day. Last week also, the Nasdaq 100 Trust ended in neither accumulation nor distribution mode. Momentum. At Tuesday 2/10 close, the CCI 20 Daily had 6 consecutive days above 0 for a change in Woody's trend, but at 192.29, it is outside the range for a valid Woody's zero-line reject signal. In Woody's CCI trading system, 6 consecutive bars above or below 0 are required for a change of trend. The weekly CCI 20 of the Nasdaq Composite Index began a Woody's uptrend 30 weeks ago, while the daily CCI 20 began a Woody's uptrend this past week. With the CCI 20 weekly at 112.12, rising from last week, we continue in the trade begun after the Friday 1/23 close long zero-line reject entry signal. We will continue following the result of this trade simulation in next week's commentary. Industry rotation the last 2 weeks. All of the top 5 industries are positive, and 3 of the bottom 5 are negative. Bullish, semis, and networkers have entered the top 5. Brokers and banks continue in the top 5. Gold and silver continues in the bottom 5. Comp Tech has left the bottom 5. Oil Services has left the top 5. Bearish, REITs continues in the bottom 5. S&P Retail has left the top 5. Focus this week from Don't Let the Title Fool You. Turkey might become hostage to ISIL just like Pakistan did. An interview with Alastair Cooke, a former MI6 official, the director and founder of Beirut-based Conflicts Forum and formerly advisor on Middle East to EU Foreign Policy Chief Javier Solana, contains a great deal of global geopolitical financial strategy. This is the most comprehensive big-picture strategic information we have found to date, and we share it with you in the belief that the better we understand global financial maneuverings and the possibilities they contain, the better we will be able to manage our finances. Alastair Cooke is the director and founder of Conflicts Forum based in Beirut. The following are a few excerpts from the article and are direct quotes from Mr. Cooke, unless otherwise noted. The international order depends more on control by the U.S. Treasury and Federal Reserve than on the UN as before. When a country is to be isolated, a scarlet letter is issued by the U.S. Treasury that asserts that such and such bank is somehow suspected of being linked to a terrorist movement or of being involved in money laundering. This scarlet letter constitutes a more potent bomb than any military weapon. But with Ukraine, we have entered a new era. We have a substantial geostrategic conflict taking place, but it's effectively a geofinancial war between the U.S. and Russia. China understands that Russia constitutes the first domino. If Russia is to fall, China will be next. These two states are, together, moving to create a parallel financial system, disentangled from the Western financial system. It includes replicating SWIFT and creating entities such as the Asian Development Bank, one of the principal tools in the hands of Washington to control the global system was always the International Monetary Fund. The IMF and the World Bank were no longer at the center of the global financial order. They had been displaced by China. For the first time, the petrodollar system has turned negative. It is sucking liquidity out from Wall Street, not putting it in. The fall in the price of oil has suddenly created huge financial turbulence, which is endangering the global financial system. Since 2008, NATO policy has not brought prosperity to Europe. It has brought austerity and recession. So, with neither a distinct foreign policy to give the EU a common identity, nor an economic policy that delivered promised prosperity for all, disenchantment has set in. Turkey sees that Europe is not a political force and, economically, may even be entering into financial crisis. We will see hotly contested elections in Europe. We may see growing violence. The mainstream parties will not do well. On the other hand, Turkey has tried to move into its backyard, the Middle East, after being out of it for a long time. Suddenly, Russia has emerged with an interesting proposal for Turkey to become an energy hub. The ISIL sleeper cells in Turkey will remain quiet, providing that ISIL is left to their own devices. But were Turkey to change its position vis-a-vis ISIL, then Turkey is likely to be as disrupted as Pakistan has been disrupted by these jihadists. Note, Putin's Russia is very anti-ISIL. For 25 years, I have seen political leaders who believe that they can control and use the Salafists for their own ends, but who subsequently find it is they who have been used by the Salafists. Russia experienced the grasping of the oligarchs and the disintegration of their economy. In China, too, consumer liberalism has taken a hold, but the atomizing effect of neoliberalism is tearing at the fabric of society and attenuating its values. There is a strong reaction taking place against neoliberalism everywhere. Every state will respond in a different way. Russia is reaching back to Orthodox Christianity in order to reinvent what it means to be Russian in a new way, by emphasizing human capital and conservative family values. China, too, is looking afresh at its ancient masters. How do you make a state that is not vulnerable to the abuse of democracy by the West? How do you make a society that is not vulnerable to the control of economic variables in order to bring regime change? How do you withdraw from this vulnerability? Interview question: isn't there a danger of countries like Turkey falling under another dictated structure while trying to get out of one? Answer: no, because in the parallel structure there is no intention to make a reserve currency like the dollar, unless it's gold, which no one can print. It will be interesting to observe how Turkey makes its choice. Was all this emerging market countries' growth truly real, or was it just asset inflation? A bubble, in other words. Have we witnessed merely a mirage of growth in the emerging markets, which was nothing more than the effect of a huge tsunami of liquidity spreading out from the Federal Reserve that was driving up the price of assets? And when it collapses, what will be left? Interviewer question: so you are saying that the conflict between the US and Russia is essentially about whose economic system is less vulnerable to what's happening in the financial markets? Answer: yes, and President Barack Obama says that the US system is stronger and less vulnerable because it has a broader base of its economy than Russia does. It is not really true. In Russia, oil and gas comprise only about 11% of the total gross domestic product of Russia. And because it has allowed the ruble to fall, its revenues in ruble terms are unchanged. And now, unlike in 1989, Russia is a foreign exchange creditor and not a debtor, so maybe it will survive this. Maybe Russia is less vulnerable to geofinancial war than many supposed, and maybe America more vulnerable. Time will tell. Only one orientation makes the bold claim to be true Islam, and that is Wahhabism. When Western policymakers say that the ideology of ISIL is a heresy and must be delegitimized, in this respect they do not understand ISIL. Saudi Arabia was founded jointly by Muhammad Abd al-Wahhab and Ibn Saud in the 18th century, and these same practices were first emulated by King Abdulaziz in the 1920s, and are now being emulated by ISIL. The principles are the same, but the West simply calls ISIL terrorists. A terrorist labeling is one that intentionally shuts down further thought. I don't think the West can be successful in fighting ISIL. The firing up of radical Wahhabi Islam was originally part of the British agreement with Abdulaziz from the 1920s, by which Abdulaziz was to become King of Arabia. These original understandings that gave the green light to the spread of Wahhabism were later transferred to the Americans in 1947. Since that time, the West has piggybacked on Saudi Arabia's ability to create a psychologically charged Sunni radicalism in pursuit of Western and Saudi interests. Now we have a competition between Turkey and Saudi Arabia for influence over these movements. That is why there is such tension between Turkey and Saudi Arabia. Turkey is the only state that can negotiate directly, state to state, with Daesh for the release of its hostages. It enjoys a relationship with ISIL. Turkey inevitably becomes also hostage to ISIL. They use ISIL, but ISIL can use Turkey too. Some people immediately think that they must have training and instructions to conduct such attacks, but this is not necessarily so. You can learn a lot on the internet, and individuals read the speeches of ISIL leaders and surmise what they should do. One aspect of fired-up radicalism is that it involves mass psychosis. You can't contain it. It travels with the wind. Turkey or Saudi Arabia won't be able to control it. That's why Saudi Arabia is building a big fence, like Israel, around the state to keep it out. But it cannot just be fenced off. Thank you for tuning in for this week's Santu Pirls Stock Market Commentary, compiled by Donald Pearl, www.s2pmarketsignal.com. Hoping that you are enjoying a peaceful and pleasant weekend, wishing you happy President's Day, and a great week coming up. And, as always, wishing you true success.